What is my sacrifice? I'm condemned to use the tools of my enemy to defeat them. I burn my decency for someone else's future. I burn my life to make a sunrise that I know I'll never see. Now, the ego that started this fight will never have a mirror or an audience or the light of gratitude. So what do I sacrifice? Everything!
Greetings, Bucketheads. Mavar Tagar. Welcome to our 308th Andor idolizing episode of Mando Vision. I am your host, Nargai Tom, and thank you so much for checking out this small independent Star Wars podcast. We are so glad you're here. Make sure you're following us on the socials. We're at Mando_Vision on Twitter and X and Instagram, at Mandovision at Blue Sky. Hit us, do the emails too, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, and share this show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. Alright, friends, if you can't tell, it is once again Mandovision After Dark, where I squirrel away into a corner of my home to record a podcast about Star Wars with the abject terror of potentially waking up my wife if I do so too loudly. So, let's go ahead and get into it. You know what we're here for. It's finally happened. The first 3 episodes of Andor have dropped on the Disney Plus, and we're here to kind of get into it. And as I alluded to in the last few episodes, because of the highly compact release schedule for this show, where Disney Plus is dropping 3 episodes every Tuesday for the next 4 weeks. We're not going to be able to break down the show as we normally do, where we get into each episode and kind of start to pull them apart, look at the various aspects of the story, and kind of get into some of the more nitty-gritty. That is something I do intend to do. It'll just have to be further down the line. These next 4 weeks, we're going to be reacting and processing kind of in real time. So I hope that you guys will bear with me as a lot of the thoughts are still fresh in my mind, as I have just recently completed watching the first 3 episodes. And there's a lot to get into as we pick up the arc of the show, of where we go 1 year later from the events of season 1. And listen, I'm going to tell you right off the bat, things that impressed the heck out of me on this show from top to bottom are everything. The performances are stellar. The direction, the writing, the choreography, the costume design, the set design, the production value. All of it is completely off the charts and looks phenomenal. The show is so rich in its visual elements. Every shot is composed with such care and such detail. It's completely fantastic to look at. It is a visually stunning series. The performances, just like in season 1, are completely off the charts. We'll talk more about that as we get into it. So much to talk about from just these first 3 episodes. But to be returning to this world, to be returning to this part of the Star Wars galaxy, is so delightful, because as I have often compared Star Wars to in this Disney world that now inhabits Star Wars on everything, is the variety of storytelling that's available to us for Star Wars. I've compared it to Baskin Robbins and 31 flavors, and there's always a flavor for someone in Star Wars, and the flavor that is Andor is just, that is my sweet spot right now. That is scratching an itch in Star Wars storytelling that I didn't know existed before the show came about. So I'm so delighted that to have the show return. And we've learned over the last few months, interviews with Tony Scott and Diego Luna, how the show, they originally sort of wanted to do like a 5-year arc and kind of have a little bit more time to kind of like, parse out the story. But then they ultimately realized that was like not really sustainable. Streaming is kind of in flux. The budget on the show has to be astronomical. And ultimately this show, if they were to do that, would be, 10 to 15 years of everyone's lives. And as much as I enjoy shows like Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul that have that kind of time to really get into the nuance of things, I'm not sure that the creative team behind this series was confident that they would get that kind of runway. Everything with streaming is sort of in flux right now as far as long-term sustainability for individual series. It's rare that a streaming show's going, something like 4 or 5 seasons nowadays. So we get this new season 2 with a very different sort of format where we're getting those 3-episode arcs week by week to cover 1 year of Andor's life as we head towards the events of Rogue One. So in a sense, it's highly compact. They're leaving some meat on the bone because we're seeing sort of the highlights, sort of like the major points, the major turning points in each year as we move closer to the events of Rogue One, and that's okay. I think that's actually very savvy on their parts, realizing that maybe they don't have the opportunity to tell 5 years worth of stories, so we have to hit the broad strokes and leave a little bit of meat on the bone, and maybe you get a chance to revisit at some point with a special or a movie, or you just write a book or a comic or something like that, because these characters do have a lot of potential and do have a lot of we have a lot more opportunity to grow and see where they go and where they develop from. So let's go ahead and start talking about these first 3 episodes. You know what that means, my friends. It is time. Strap on your buckets. Let's go.
Get out of here. We'll hold them off. You're going to have to relocate the covert. This is the way. This is the way.
So these first 3 episodes of Season 2 of Andor, we have Episode 1, 1 year later, Episode 2, Sigrona Tima, and Episode 3, Harvest. All 3 are written by Tony Gilroy. All 3 are directed by Ariel Kleeman. And they do a great job. I mean, I don't expect anything less of this team at this point of the series, because Season 1 set a really high bar. And I had no doubt that they would maintain that in the second season here. What we do get, though, as we jump 1 year forward from the events of Season 1, is we find all of our characters in very different positions, but not completely unfamiliar from where we thought they might be. Except maybe in one instance. There's 4 main storylines that we're following here in this first arc. We have Cassian stealing a prototype TIE fighter and trying to get it back to Luthen Rael and the other rebel cells. We have the refugees of Ferrix, Brasso and Bix and Willen, and where they are and what they're up to now. We also have what's going on with Mon Mothma, the wedding of her daughter to Skalden's son, the crime lord who's helping smooth over her finances and sort of obscure her financial contributions to the growing rebel cells. And then, of course, we have the Empire. We have Dedra Meero and the ISB and what's going on with them, as now we introduce, or perhaps reintroduce, Director Orson Krennic and his nefarious plans for the planet Gorman, which we get into very, very quickly, which I think surprised me a little bit how quickly we really dive into the topic of Gorman. So those are sort of our 4 main things that we're following here in this arc. And let's just start with Cassian, because again, that's where the episode starts. We're on Sanier, of all places. Sanier Systems, the makers of many, many Imperial weapons, including the TIE fighters, and Cassian's plan to steal a prototype TIE fighter. And we see very quickly and very clearly that Cassian has grown quite a bit from where he was in season 1. Much more of a leader character. The way he reassures the Imperial technician who is helping aid him in the theft of this craft. We've seen that this character has grown and changed. The events of season 1 has helped shape him into something else, something more. And that's nice to see, the character development of Andor from 1 to 2. Very, very good stuff. The theft of the TIE fighter is fantastic. It's a great action sequence. It's comical because it's not, as we find out later on, not the ship he was trained on. So he has no idea how to really fly it. He just sort of has to kind of wing it in sort of a comical fashion. But he does eventually figure it out. It does lead to a fun escape sequence from Sanier, and good times visually for the audience as we get a TIE chase. We get TIE defenders and all kinds of good stuff. It's very visually exciting. A great way to kick off the show, the new season, as we see Andor neck deep in a mission already. Good stuff. But I will say that for Andor, I sort of think that's the highlight of his arc for these first 3 episodes. Because what comes next is Andor being taken prisoner by a rebel cell. Because, and again, it's what storytelling wise, it's completely important, and I completely understand why they do it. They are illustrating the dysfunction that exists among the various rebel cells of the time. There's no communication. Nobody knows what each hand, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing, and vice versa. So the fact that Andor is a rebel with the, in the same league as these other rebel cells, but they don't know that, leads to mass confusion, lots of infighting, no real leadership structure whatsoever. And I think it's important to illustrate that as we move closer and closer to the all-important crystallizing moment that is the Massacre of Gorman. So while Andor's storyline in these first 3 episodes is critically important for us to understand just how disorganized the various rebel cells are throughout the galaxy, it's probably, in my opinion, maybe the least interesting of the storylines that we get thus far from the show. Now, what I do like about it is, again, because we are doing our Star Wars Rebels rewatch, and we're focusing on the Spectres and their time with Phoenix Squadron, a much more organized cell. It's fun to kind of compare it to a smaller group of people who we find out later on in the 3rd episode that they're actually on Yavin the entire time. Yavin 4, future base of the Rebel Alliance. So an interesting twist there. And another element that I like about that is they refer to the dangers in the jungle. And that's always been part of the mythology, part of the lore around Yavin 4 was, hey, away from the Massassi temples, there's a lot of crazy things that happen in that forest, in that jungle area. And we get a taste of it in this arc. So the revelation there that we were on Yavin for this is pretty fun. But yeah, remember, that's sort of the key element we're taking away from this is that the rebels of this time, 4 years before the Battle of Yavin, not organized, no clear leadership structure whatsoever, and it's sort of sloppy, and Cassian can manipulate them. Cassian can sort of take advantage of the chaos in a sense, because he is a stronger will than all of them combined. But of the arcs in this in this first 3 episodes of season 2, it was sort of, to me, like the least compelling. I got the point pretty quick. The next arc I want to talk about in the first 3 episodes is what takes place on Mina Rao, where our refugees from Ferrix are Brasso, Bix, and Wilman. Out on this agrarian planet, they're what's known as toolies. They go around fixing the producers for these harvesting silos that are producing mass amounts of grain and wheat and things like that for the Empire. And again, they're refugees. They are hiding amongst the populace. They are, there's a lot of real world references that we can make there. There's undocumented workers. There is illegal immigration. All these kind of things that we can incorporate from the real world. And listen, let me kind of like put a pin in this really quick here, because one of the first things I connected with watching the first episode of this new season was I was reminded very, very quickly just how real this Star Wars show is, just how kind of ground level it is. Like so many things that are understandable and relatable to our world, very, very quickly introduced back in season in the first episode of this season. And I was like, it was just sort of a breath of fresh air in a sense, because while I enjoy the high fantasy and of Star Wars and Jedi versus Sith and the Force and all these other things, Andor is something different. It's something a little bit more complex, but a little bit more relatable, a little bit more understandable, because I can look at my window, I can read my newspaper, I can turn on the TV and watch the news and see what they're talking about in front of me. So again, particularly here living in Southern California, migrant workers, undocumented workers, this is a very real thing that I deal with, that I live with on a day-to-day basis. It's in my news, it's in my life. And again, we're going to keep real world politics out of this conversation, but it's something that we all have some sort of familiarity with. And I think that just it makes this show so much more credible. It gives it this understanding that Star Wars is is set in a galaxy far, far away, but there are things that we can all understand and relate to, and things that we are all living with. So very, very interesting stuff. And I like this arc because it seems very much like they've been embraced by this community. But by the third episode, we realize that they're being used by this community. They're doing the work to keep the silos in place, to keep the harvesting happening. And if the Empire didn't show up, they probably would have been just as happy to keep them around, to keep them doing this work and make them feel like they're part of this community. But as soon as the Empire shows up to do this audit, the actual members of this community, the documented people, the actual citizens of Mina Rao, very, very quickly turn on them and expose them and rat them out as being undocumented, illegals, people who are other, people who are different. And again, a lot of real world connotations there. Now, a lot of this storyline, there's a lot of little moving parts here. I don't know if we'll get into them on this episode. You have Wilman's relationship with one of the daughters of the locals. You have Bix dealing with the PTSD from her situation, from her torture at the hands of the Empire. And you have Brasso sort of being the one holding them all together. And you also have B2 Emo hanging around with these guys. And listen, I'm just going to cut to the chase here. The most devastating part of the storyline is the fact that at the end of it, when they leave this planet, B2 Emo is left behind. And Cassian and B2 Emo may never be reunited. And that made me so much more upset than I thought I would be. That it made me like kind of angry. I was like, are you kidding me? Brasso sends B2 Emo off to live with this lady, and now Cassian and he will never reunite. That made me very, very sad. But there's a lot of elements of the Mina Rao storyline that I do really like. This domicile that they have. There's like a painting of Marva on the wall. It's sort of like this. Again, it's sort of like a pseudo homestead, but the fact that they've sort of have molded together as like this surrogate family structure, I think is very charming, very delightful. And the fact that they're all waiting for Cassian, they know Cassian's out running these missions, he's out doing these things. but they don't know what he's doing. They don't know where he is. They don't know when he'll be back, and these things like that. And then when the Empire shows up and he's not there to help them, not there to aid them, it's remnants of, a reminder of what happened at Ferrix, because they're wanted by the Empire now, but they still have very strong feelings about fighting the Empire too. We also get our first attempted rape in Star Wars, which was something I was not expecting, but was definitely a vibe I picked up on very early on. I was like once that Imperial lieutenant showed up and started talking to Bix, I was like, this guy's going to be a problem down the road, and I think the main problem is going to be between his legs. And sure enough, yes, indeed. And I do believe this is the first visually confirmed documented rape attempt in Star Wars. Welcome to 2025 Star Wars fans. Hello. That was something else. But Bix, being Bix, fights back, resists, holds her own, stands her ground, does the things you want to see your Star Wars heroes do. So again, very delighted by that. Thought that worked out nicely. Of course, by the end, when Cassian shows up with his prototype TIE after escaping from what we find out is Yavin 4, Brasso pays the price. And he won't be making it off of Mina Rao alive. And that's sad. That upsets me. Brasso was sort of a force on Ferrix in Season 1. And to lose him is sort of another reminder that by the time we get to Rogue One, and Andor tells Jyn Erso that he's lost everything and everyone, like this is part of that. Like this is the continuing saga of Cassian losing people to the Empire as he attempts to try and fight them. So a strong storyline. I love sort of the reverberations with reality, with the real world. Strong stuff there. Like this storyline quite a bit. Now we will talk about the Empire. And again, they don't have a huge role in these first 3 episodes. Dedra Meero and friends, the ISB, they're at a secret meeting, and it's led by director Orson Krennic, and we are getting all the information on Gorman, like why Gorman's so important to the galaxy at large, but more importantly, we're finding out why Gorman is important to the Empire. And we know what they don't know, which is the Death Star. And that's the big thing. And there is a mineral, there's a resource. Gorman is a mineral-rich planet, and the Empire needs that material. So what are we going to do? They offer up several ideas. There's a propaganda campaign. There's all these other thoughts about how to sort of sow some destabilization into the planet. And it's Dedra Meero, who Krennic specifically targets as someone who has a bold vision, bold ideas. And she's like, no, this is what you need to do. And in the effort to sort of destabilize Gorman itself. And it's horrific. All of it's horrific. Like, whether it's the propaganda plans, whether it's Dedra Meero's plan, whether it's the mega fracking operation that the Empire has in mind to extract this resource that would destabilize the planet itself, it's all completely horrific. And as we talked about on some previous episodes, Gorman is massively important. It is a crystallization moment for so many characters on why the Empire must be stopped. So Gorman was teased in Season 1. Longtime fans, big-time fans know that Gorman's also a big part of Star Wars Rebels, which we are rewatching. It's a moment that brings the Rebel Alliance together ultimately. So getting to see the details behind it, getting to see the nitty-gritty of what the Empire is doing there exactly is fascinating. And I can't wait to see more of it, to see how it all plays out. Again, even though we know ultimately that it leads to something good, getting to see the Empire committing atrocities is, I think, valuable pieces of storytelling because, again, we are exploring tyranny. We are exploring what it means to impose your will and squash the freedoms of individuals and of people and cultures and societies. It's fascinating stuff. It's really what the core of this show is, and I love it so much. So Gorman's gonna be a big deal. They only really tease it in that first episode with this sort of like secret rendezvous that Krennic organizes with the ISB and some other head honchos of the Empire. This sort of secret cabal he organizes to help figure out how to destabilize Gorman so that he can take their resources for the Death Star project. Evil stuff, sinister stuff. And Dedra Meero, while she does have a solution to it, ultimately doesn't want to be involved, but it's too late. And for a penny and for a pound, Krennic chose her, and there's no getting out of it. So a fascinating aspect of that. Also of fascinating interest in this 3-episode opening arc for Dedra in particular is her relationship ? With Cyril Karn. They are living together. They seem to have some sort of relationship. We don't know the extents of it. We don't understand a lot of it, but they are cohabitating. Cyril Karn is still a civil servant, but he seems to be quite happy in his role. He's gained some notoriety, some new position, some new authority in his role. And he's bringing others in and telling them that they can do good things for the Empire if they were willing to put in the work. And Dedra, to her credit, I think it's been, I can't remember specifically if it was in episode 2 or in episode 3. I think it was in episode 3. But Cyril's mom comes over for dinner, and it is so completely uncomfortable and awkward. And then Cyril excuses himself after a moment of his mother embarrassing him yet again. And Dedra makes a new deal with the mother of Cyril Karn that is just completely fascinating to watch from start to finish. Just very, very blown away by this dynamic, by this relationship. I don't know what the deal is here, like if this is actually some sort of romantic thing or if this is a relationship of convenience. I don't know. I'm sort of fascinated to get into this more completely. But what's interesting about Dedra's character right now is we're seeing that the things she's doing, and again, we get big insight into her background through that dinner conversation with Cyril's mother. So pay attention to that. Being raised by the state, basically, being raised by the imperial system because her parents were criminals. Big, insightful things right there. But a character who seems to have some sort of, I want to say it's a moral understanding of what she's doing, but I'm not quite sold on that just yet. But the things she's doing are having some sort of effect on her because she's beginning to develop nervous twitches. The way she moves her fingers, the way she taps her fingers kind of behind her back and involuntarily. There's some sort of stressor happening, some sort of level of panic happening with her as she kind of gets deeper and deeper into the sinisterness of her role with the ISB and what the Empire is doing to people across the galaxy. Will she have a change of heart? Will she turn? I think it's unlikely. But, one of the trailers sort of alluded to the idea that she might be having some sort of panic attack. So that'll be interesting to follow. Again, Dedra, very good at her job. Very cunning, very shrewd. Seems to know how to get to the heart of things. Though Project Access, not a big success for her, which is why her getting poached by Krennic is not a big deal because Access wasn't going anywhere. She was never really able to get much closer to Andor after Ferrix and the events of Season 1. So let's pay attention to what's going on with Dedra. Let's pay attention to that. Let's pay attention to that nervous twitch she's developing with her fingers. Interesting stuff. So now we come to what I personally think might have been the highlight, at least for me, of these first 3 episodes, and that is the Mon Mothma arc of the story. The wedding of Mon's daughter, Lyda, to Skulden's son, again, the crime lord, basically, helping to legitimize him, to smooth over her finances, her connections to the Rebel Alliance, all these things. I found this storyline to be completely fascinating. I thought Genevieve O'Reilly, in particular, was lights out performance, and it was just completely incredible and an immersive part of the storyline, in my opinion. There is so much emotion and complex feelings. Mon trying to sort of shield her daughter, trying to do right by her daughter who still doesn't care for her very much. Again, putting on these illusions with Perrin, her husband, negotiating with Take Homa in the background, the whole thing, and the weight of it all, the way it weighs on Mon Mothma, I found it to be completely impactful. And then you add in the element of Luthen Rael at the event. He has been working with Skulden. I suspect Luthen very much wanted to be included in this to kind of see how this all plays out. So Skulden has him dig up a piece of Chandrilla lore to make a wedding gift of. And that part alone is so fascinating to me because, again, Chandrilla, a place we've not visited in live-action Star Wars. We've had it in some books. We've had references to it, some allusions to it in Season 1. But to see Star Wars spend some time and give us a new culture, a lot of just new elements, a new way of looking at the people who inhabit this galaxy, I thought was completely fascinating. I loved every second that we spent on Chandrilla as we're in the ancestral home of Mon Mothma and her family. The customs, the wedding tradition, the 3-day event that a wedding is on Chandrilla, the ceremonial stuff they do, the ancient rites, and then when all that's done, you bring out your EDM robot to start dropping the bass, so you can get your groove on in a more modern fashion. I love the whole thing, and again, you factor in Luthen Rael and the rebel elements of it, and it's completely fascinating. Obviously, you have Coma in there being like, hey, guess what? All your rebel friends who I helped you kind of like smooth things over with so that you could get your finances back on track to keep supporting them. Well, guess what? They're messing up all my investments, and now I'm broke and destitute, and I'm in a lot of trouble, and I'm hanging out with Skulden over here, who, guess what? He's a crime guy, and things may happen if you guys don't help me out here. It's just all so completely real and so completely immersive. And again, Mon Mothma sort of taking this stance that when Luthen calls her out, like that, hey, something's gonna have to be done about this guy. Like, he's gonna be a problem, and we need to protect you. And her sort of naivete about what needs to be done to deal with Coma is fantastic. And again, Luthen doing his thing. Vel's there as well, and Vel trying to be there to support Mothma, but at the same time, trying to further the rebellion. And then when she sees Senta to pick up Coma, and we all know what's gonna happen then. Senta's gonna be killing Coma. We're not seeing that fool again. He's donezo. And again, Mon Mothma getting drunk, cutting loose, because she knows she's getting in way over her head. Her morality is suspect at this point in time. She's done things. She's aligned with people who are not good in many, many senses. So she's grappling with the morality of what she's doing for the greater good, the sacrifices she has to make now amongst herself, amongst her family, for the greater good, right? For the galaxy at large, to make a better world for a better galaxy for her daughter, and measuring that cost, and what is that cost, and where is the line going to be. And I think at this point in time, Mon Mothma thinks she's sinking into a pit, into deep waters that she can't get herself out of. So seeing her get drunk and cut loose, when the EDM robot's going crazy and dropping the bass, it's sort of like this stark moment, and the way they cut it with what's going on Mina Rao, I thought was completely fascinating. I really liked the way it was cut together, showing these moments of rebels and immigrants and migrants escaping imperial tyranny. Meanwhile, we have Mon sort of spiraling and going down the drain a little bit. But I think ultimately what we know will happen is the massacre is what happens on Gorman, as this crystallizing moment, this galvanizing moment for Mon to step up and become the leader of the Rebel Alliance that we all know she's destined to become. But the trials and tribulations that get her to that point are what completely fascinate me to this point. And that's why, in my opinion, her storyline in these first 3 episodes was the best. Again, Genevieve O'Reilly completely steals these first 3 episodes, in my opinion. She is fantastic. Just utterly, just embrace that performance. Just soak it in. She is the range of emotions, the way she has to play act around certain people, the way she has to parlay with others. It's a tour de force performance. Genevieve O'Reilly, much like many of the people in this cast, deserves massive recognition for their performance in it. It was a shame that Andor didn't win any Emmys, but maybe in season 2 we rectify that. And Genevieve O'Reilly right now off to a very, very strong start for best act. Is it still actress? Is that still a thing? I don't know. I forget the names of things. But stellar performance. Love what we're doing with Mon Mothma so far. Can't wait to see what is next. The stage is set. The die is cast. We are moving forward. We're barreling ahead to the Battle of Yavin. And I cannot wait. It's going to be epic. It already is. Check out these first 3 episodes. I can't wait to revisit them, dive into them a little bit more deeply down the road on the podcast. But really, really good stuff. And I look forward to doing these reactions with you guys every week. As I get ready to wrap this podcast up, it is 2 a.m. in San Diego, so I am a little tired. I do think I covered everything I wanted to talk about, but on the chance that I missed something, we will get to it. Stick with us. You know how we do over here on the Mandovision podcast. So thank you guys for the continued support. This is Mandovision, and I am your host, Narguy Tom. Thank you so much for being here, supporting us. Hit us up on the socials at Mando_Vision on Twitter/X and Instagram. You can also find us at Mandovision on Blue Sky. You can email the show, mandovisiontom@gmail.com. Make sure to like, subscribe, follow, and share the show with all the Mandalorians in your covert. And if you're on the Apple Podcast, sweet 5-star reviews. They are tremendously helpful to the small shows like us. Thank you so much. Go out there, be great Star Wars fans. And remember, we're going to be back here next week for more Andor talk. We're not going to miss it. You're not going to miss it. So we'll see you guys next week. In the meantime, remember, this podcast can only end one way. This is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way. This is the way.
I suppose you'll be heading out.
I'm not.
You should.
It's against the creed. I gave you my word. I'm with you until we both fall.
You really buy into that bantha fodder?
I do.